Welcome to this edition of Backstage Pass with Lia Chang. I'm your host, Lia Chang. Today, you're going to be meeting two authors of a wonderful book called The Murder of Mr. Ma, S.J. Rozan and John Sun Yen Ni.
I'm S.J. Rozan, and I have been in the crime writing business for a lot of years. I have a series going on, and when my agent called in the middle of the pandemic and said he'd gotten a call from a guy with a really good idea that might work for me, would I talk to him? My response was, this is the middle of the pandemic. I will talk to anybody that I don't know and anybody that I do know. So that's how I got involved in this.
My name's John Nee. I come from comics, pop culture, video games, and I've been working on this with SJ almost 4 years to today, but been thinking about this project for well over a decade.
What is The Murder of Mr. Ma about?
Well, it's about 300 pages. It's the
And then some?
Yes. The Murder of Mr. Ma is about the murder of Mr. Ma, solved by Judge Dee, who is the Sherlock Holmes of China, and his narrator, the real-life Lao She, who was a prominent author from China in the 20s.
Well, you are from the world of comics. This is your first narrative book?
Well, it's the first prose book that I've co-authored with someone. I at DC Comics and at Marvel Comics, one of the things I supervised was the tie-in fiction, and so we produced this book in a very similar way than you would see a typical Batman or Spider-Man book, where we created a very detailed outline that had all the major beats in the story, and then SJ created the beats that turned it into a novel, and then filled in all the blank spaces.
Now, being the author of the Lydia Chin series, what was it like for you to be collaborating with someone?
It was fabulous. I have to tell you, there is nothing like getting up in the morning and having an outline. I don't outline as a writer. I can't. I until I know who the characters are and what they're doing and who comes in and out of the book, I can't write an outline. So when I get up in the morning to write a Lydia Chin, Bill Smith book, I have a stomach ache. What's going to happen today? I don't know. Maybe nothing. But with this, I had pages and pages of it. Chapter 1, scene 1. It was fabulous because I could concentrate on the characters and the setting and the dialogue, which is the fun part. So I loved it.
Tell me who exactly Judge Dee is and who Lao Shi is?
So the inspiration for me really was to find a way of telling the story of 20th century China in an interesting way, and over a period of years settled on the 20s as a very, very important decade in the life of China and its relationship to the West. And I wanted to tell that story, and so we felt that, I could give you hundreds of books to read about modern China. We would like to give you some important facts that are relevant and true, help the narrative. And so it's really more about the story of China in the 20th century. I think that every Chinese American, without a doubt, has a very interesting backstory, and that I have a very interesting backstory, starting with, my grandfather allegedly owned a bank in Shanghai, to my father, being in World War II. He was in the underground fighting against the Japanese. He survived the Civil War, moved to Taiwan, came to the U.S., and, I think when you think about the number of boxes that you have moved around your entire life with your Chinese family, you always go through stuff and you're like, oh, okay, all right, there's some interesting stuff there.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in San Diego. My family on my mother's side is from the Tennessee Valley. They've been there since the 1600s. My father was a Fulbright scholar who came from Taiwan and went to the University of Tennessee for his PhD.
Well, one of the reasons why this book came to my attention, is because on Lunar New Year at the Asia Society, I met up with you and Sifu Paul Koh. And at that time, he told me that he had actually worked as the Kung Fu consultant for the book. I'd like to hear more about that. We're going to be chatting with him later today, but I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yes, the Judge D, as we imagined him, is a Kung Fu expert. And this book contains a lot of fight scenes. It's an action-oriented book, as well as a character-oriented book, as well as a book full of history. And I was telling some people at a party that our big roadblock right now was we didn't have a Kung Fu consultant. One of the guys at the party had studied with Sifu Koh and said, you know, he might be the guy you need. So we got in touch with him, and boy, is he the guy we need. We started sending him the scene before and the scene after, and then insert Kung Fu fight here. And I expected to get back a choreographed this stance, this event, this kick, this, that. What I got was a narrative. And some of it is hilarious, because these guys are kind of funny, Lao She and Judge D. And Sifu really got that. And he wrote some just terrific scenes. He writes them in the present tense and from everybody's point of view. So then I have to translate them into what works in the book.
Right.
But they are fabulous. He is exactly the guy we needed. So I have been enjoying working with him and Kristen Rosenfeld, his assistant, also.
Now, I chatted with SJ earlier, and she told me that this is actually a series.
Oh, yes.
How many do you think you want to do? What eras? What do you think you want to tackle next?
So this shouldn't be viewed as story spoilers to anyone who's read their history. This first block of Judge D's stories starts in 1924 and goes up to the Xi'an incident, which involved, the warlord king of the North kidnapping Chiang Kai-shek and holding him hostage until he agreed to unify the war against Japanese in China instead of focusing his fight on the communists. And that really takes us from 1924 through 1936. After 1936, things get really interesting and moves into World War II and the Chinese Civil War, and then things get really interesting with Mao's actions during the 50s, and then following the Cultural Revolution, where things get really, really interesting. And when I say interesting, it's a lot, and we can't trivialize what happened in China in the 20th century, and a lot of people just don't know.
Yeah, I think that's true. There were things when we started this book that I didn't know. A lot of what happens in this book is because of things that happened in France during World War I with the Chinese Labor Corps. John told me that on the phone when we first talked, and I said, the what? I had never heard of the Chinese Labor Corps. Most Westerners haven't. So that one of the things we're doing is bringing some of this history to light, not because it's hidden, but because Westerners don't know it.
Right.
And it's fascinating stuff. And it's fascinating to be able to weave it into London in the 20s, which was another really interesting time. Judge Dee, of course, really lived in the Tang Dynasty, which is 1,000 years ago. It was 1,000 years before that. It's more than that now. And we just figure he time jumped here the same way Sherlock Holmes does, and that's how it goes. And Lao She really was there in 1924. He was in London teaching. And so it was an obvious connection to make. And he as narrator and Dee as action hero really worked for us. I have to say, this is my 20th novel, and I thought, okay, we're having a party tonight, that's fine. And I've been singing another opening of another show. I mean, I've been all excited. I haven't been this excited in a long time. It really had gotten, not old hat, but I knew how book launches went. This one is kind of different. For one thing, we're having a lion dance.
Yes.
Sifu Paul.
Did you never have a lion dance for any of your other book openings?
Not. Isn't that something?
And you may not be able to do one without it.
From
certainly
now on,
not without,
yeah.
not with the series.
Yes, I think
with
from
this
now
series,
on
you're
we'll,
always going to have a lion dance and probably a pig blessing.
I think maybe, but it's this really is quite a thrill, and we are. I have to give a little shout out to Soho Crime. We are delighted to be at Soho. It's the perfect house for this series, and they have been great. So I just had to say that too.
Yes. Well, congratulations. Everybody needs to get their copy of The Murder of Mr. Ma. It was fascinating, and I learned a lot, too.
Early on, John said, we need food porn here and food porn here, and I love food porn, so does John. So, yeah, there's a lot of food in the book.
Nobody understands Chinese food better than Jews.
Thank you all for coming. This is way cool. We're here to launch The Murder of Mr. Ma, the beginning of a series of books with Judge Dee and Lao She. These books will go on. One of the reasons we're here, besides Granddaddy is the coolest cafe in New York, is that upstairs from Granddaddy is Bala Kung Fu. We need to thank John Nee over there is the other half of the writing team that produced this book. And we need to thank Alex Segura. Is Alex here? Did he make it?
I haven't seen him.
Alex Segura did not make it. He's a lowlife. Alex Segura is the guy who brought me and John together, because when John called Alex and said, I have these ideas for books, what am I going to do? This is in the middle of the pandemic, when we were all wondering what we were going to do. Alex said, call my agent, Josh Getzler, who is right over there. Josh called me and said, I've just been talking to this guy for an hour and a half, and he has all of these ideas, and one of them may be perfect for you. On the other hand, it's a pandemic, so none of us know anything. Will you talk to him? And I said, a living human being? Yes, I'll talk to him. So we talked, and I loved the idea. I didn't fully understand it for a long time, but I loved it, and that was the idea that became The Murder of Mr. Ma and the rest of the books. The physical book, the thing, is brought to you by Soho. Soho Press. Yay! And we want to thank Kaz Ernoff, right here. Who is our editor and our champion. And of course, Bronwyn and Juliet, Bronwyn Hruska, Juliet Graves, who we had this fabulous meeting on Zoom. And I think John actually mentioned to me today that we met by telephone on April 4th, 2020. It's now April 2nd, 2024. We have physical books over in the corner. You can buy them. How amazing is that, right? We also need to thank our secret weapon, because the thing about this book is, and I'm going to tell a little story here. As we were writing the book, we had a little roadblock. And my friend Steve, who is not here, but his husband Jim is. Jim, where are you?
I'm here.
Tell him I told this story. Steve had a birthday party, and he invited some people, and one of them was my friend Bob Hughes, who is also over there, who was nice enough to ask how the project was going. And I said, it's going great, except we have a roadblock. We need a Kung Fu consultant, and we haven't been able to find one that we can work with. And another guy, Henry, is Henry here? Henry said he's another lowlife. Henry tapped me on the shoulder from the other side and said, I don't mean to be eavesdropping, but I used to study Kung Fu down in Chinatown with Master Paul Koh. He may be the guy you need. So we got in touch with Master Koh, and he is indeed the guy we need. Not only is his Kung Fu unbeatable and fabulous, and the fight scenes are great and all that, but he has a great sense of humor, which is what this book needed. And so when you read the fight scenes, and especially when you get to the booby traps, those are all Master Koh's. Master Koh, will you come up here? Where are you with your body go? Yeah, well, this is the only time I get to be bigger than everybody. So what's going to happen now is that Master Koh is going back upstairs. I will read, and then we're going to get a lion dance. If you've never seen a lion dance, oh, what you have missed. And if you've seen one, this one is better.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, John, for the wonderful opportunity to work with you guys and bring out the Chinese culture and Chinese Kung Fu. And I really, really mean it from the bottom of my heart. It's a pleasure to work with everyone. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Arranged this and pretty much everything else. Johnny is a fabulous publicist. And I have never, this is the 20th book I've worked on. I've never said that before. Okay? Chapter 1, the narrator is Lao She. He is a Chinese writer in London in 1924. He was a real guy, and he wrote a number of really good books. He was in London in 1924. So this is the opening. Leaning on an iron railing, I took in the sights and sounds of a Hyde Park spring afternoon. Yellow daffodils splashed the borders of the emerald lawn on which picnickers sat on plaid blankets. Threading among them, giggling children chased yipping dogs. The late sun lent everything a generous honey glow. At Speaker's Corner, the Union Jack billowed in the breeze, lofted by conservatives, fixed on squelching socialists by means of shouted slogans, traitors will destroy England, and such like. The socialists, stationed beside them, waved red banners and roared, "Down with capitalism!" Young women in severe suits, and more than one in trousers, held placards demanding the full franchise, not the limited version currently on offer. Others who saw salvation in trade unions, the squelching of trade unions, Indian independence, opposition to Indian independence, the Catholic Church, atheism, the Liberal Party, or an end to the consumption of alcohol, pressed their causes, while uniformed men and women banged drums and sang hymns in an enthusiastic effort toward the salvation of souls. Ah, the British. Often wrong, but never without opinions and the zeal to express them. Possibly, I thought, as I turned to walk to my lodgings, we Chinese could take a lesson from them. Though if it were so, I could not for the life of me discern what it might be. As I approached the little house near the British Museum, my heart began to beat with the usual mixture of anticipation and trepidation. These two emotions shared a common source, the possibility of encountering Miss Mary Wendell. Miss Wendell, the daughter of my landlady, was quite the most attractive creature I had ever laid eyes on. A gleaming golden bob framed her lively rose-cheeked face. Her blue eyes glowed with merriment, and her movements were quick and graceful. From the moment we met, she sparked such ardor in my soul as I had never anticipated finding in England. The fervor of that moment, however, had not been mutual. When I first came to lodge with the Wendells, Mary shared her mother's disdain for the Chinese and would barely speak to me. I could hardly blame the ladies, for their heads were filled with the slant-eyed, long-nailed images of yellow-skinned horror perpetrated by pulp magazines, cheap stage shows, and moving pictures. In the months I had been living there, I believed my comportment had caused the Wendell ladies' idea of the Chinese to reverse.
Come on. You're ridiculous. This happens every single time. First of all, stop. Calm down. First of all, get your thumb out of there. It's upside down. Don't you understand? Yes, it's the murder of Mr. Ma. Yeah, I know there's a lot of kung fu. Yeah, I know. The authors are here. John is over there. He's waiting. SJ's waiting. Stop. You can read it later. They might even sign it for you. Okay, give me these. Stop. Don't do the job. Come on, let's go. I had enough of it. Every time, the same thing, every single time. Hey, go! Great job. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for this edition of Backstage Pass with Lia Chang. Until next time.